Okay, thank you. Let me start screen sharing. Dear all, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Right. Let me take a moment to arrange it. Yes. Thank you all for joining. This is the fourth session in a series of 10 workshops on emotional intelligence. As usual, we will go through a quick recap. I think most of the audience have at least gone through one or two of the workshops earlier, but still to refresh our memory. The significance of emotional intelligence. This book was published by Daniel Goleman in the year 1995. What he says is that the present day education system is largely focused on intelligence quotient or IQ. The effect of IQ in determining a person's success in life is found to be only about 20%. What accounts for the remaining 80%? The bad news is that there is no single factor. The factors like luck, family background, income level, so many things are there. But the significance of emotional intelligence comes from the fact that IQ has a floor effect. That most people who are in a similar kind of job or in starting up a industry or an enterprise, mostly they will have at least a threshold level of IQ or kind of a similar level of education. In that kind of population, studies have shown that it is emotional maturity that accounts for about 80% of success in life. So this is the significance of emotional intelligence, the fact that our present day education system focuses too much on IQ. So people are more or less equipped in the IQ area, but thereafter, the differentiating factor therefore is emotional maturity. And this is what Daniel Goleman tried to address through his book. In his own words, he could publish this book only in the year 1995 because until then, science didn't have much idea about what are emotions. The best model science had up to that time was that the model of human mind analogous to that of a computer. Computers, we know, do not have emotions. So we were told the best thing is to be unemotional. That was the way we were brought up. But now the paradigms has changed. And it is a result of advances in brain imaging techniques called MRI and fMRI scan that developed in the second half of 20th century, like 1980, 1990, like that. And this workshop is an attempt to go through the pages of this book in detail and try to find some practical tips that we can practice in our day-to-day life in order to enhance our emotional intelligence. But here is a caveat. I am not an expert in emotional intelligence. I am not an expert in psychology. So please do not take whatever that I am saying here as the authentic word or authoritative opinion on emotional intelligence. It is not so. Please read the book by yourself and try to learn from other sources and challenge these ideas and practice them and see if they work or not. And we have, in the previous session, we have seen that emotions are survival mechanisms that nature has given to animals. And in moments of crisis, our emotional brain is capable of even shutting down the thinking supercomputer brain that makes our human beings distinct from other animals and make us or dictates the actions purely based on emotion that we may not even be consciously aware of. And that is called an amygdala hijack. And then we discuss the history of IQ and emotional intelligence. And then there are 5 domains of emotional intelligence. Out of that, we discussed the first one, that is emotional self-awareness, in the last workshop. So today, what we will do is to go through the next 2 domains. That is, first is managing our own emotions, and the second is self-motivation. So in between, if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to raise, but otherwise we will have a question and Q&A session towards the end. Okay, with that, let us start. When we think about managing our own emotions, these are the kind of questions that will run through many people's mind. First is emotional intelligence about suppression of emotions? Second, is it about being nice with everyone? And third, shouldn't we accept emotions as they are? Should we contaminate them? These are the very relevant questions that would come in everyone's mind. Let us see what the book says about it. The book says there are 3 types of people when we consider emotional self-awareness. First group is self-aware, and they are aware of their emotions and they are able to manage their emotions. If they want, they can keep themselves in a positive, happy mode. And in some cases, some of them are deliberately keep them in a bad mode, like social activists. They keep up their outrage in order to make their reaction stronger to perceived injustices. So there are this first group, they are emotionally self-aware and they are capable of keeping their emotions either on the positive side or on the negative side. Second group is engulfed. They have no clue. They are not at all aware of emotions. They are totally at the mercy of their emotions. They are swamped and they are emotionally out of control. And the third group is accepting. Third group, then they are aware about their emotions, but they do not try to change their emotion. They consider it not a right thing to do. And there can be two types of people in the accepting group. Someone who is often in a good mood and they don't find a need to change. And someone who are resigned to their bad mood, like people who are depressed. They know that they are sad, they know that they are depressed, but they prefer not to change that. So these are the three groups of people, but what is the right group to be in? And what this book says is that it is to be good in the first group, that is emotionally self-aware and be able to manage our emotions the way we want. Why? This quote, it is a very insightful quote. What it says is that in every area, a level of regulation is essential in order to get productive results. No horse gets anywhere until he is harnessed. That means in order to get productive riding from a horse, it is essential to harness that horse. It is essential to bring that level of regulation on that horse. No stream or gas drives anything until it is confined. No Niagara ever turned into light and power until it is tunneled. No life ever grows great until it is focused, dedicated, and disciplined. That is applicable in the case of emotions as well. In order to be productive, there is a level of regulation that is necessary in case of emotions as well. But to what level it is accurate, no one knows. We do not know. But one thing is clear, the book says that a level of regulation is essential in the case of emotions. And this was articulated by a speech by this Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain. 2 months ago, he delivered a speech in Mind Academy Toastmasters, and these are his very own words. He said, a leader at any level has to be emotionally stronger than his command. A leader cannot afford to be at the mercy of his or her emotions. On the face of adversity, it is very highly important for the leader to remain calm. And read it alongside this proverb from Africa. It says, an army of sheep led by a lion can defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. This speaks volumes about the importance of emotional intelligence in leadership roles. The question will come, should we mute our emotions in that case? It is not so. When emotions are too muted, life will become dull. But on the other hand, if emotions are too much out of control and extreme, it becomes pathological. The magic here is to strike a balance and then tilt it in favor of the positive emotions. So this is the essence of emotional self-mastery. And how to do that? For that, we will today go through the two most prominent negative emotions. First is anger. Anger is the most difficult, at the same time, the most seductive of all negative emotions. All our classics, if you look at it, they to an extent glorify anger, and it's all about revenge. And there are so many misconceptions about anger as well. And we encounter anger almost every day. At least this scene you would be familiar with, you would have seen it somewhere, or you would have participated something like this. This is road rage. And he is angry at the other driver. That's the same case with her too. How to handle such situations? Regarding anger, the popular misconceptions are these four. First, that it is uncontrollable. Second, it should not be controlled. Third, it is good to be vented out. And fourth, it can be completely prevented. These things could be true in certain cases. They are exceptions rather than the norm. If not in all cases, at least in most cases, these things are wrong. So that's why it is said to be misperceptions. There are certain interesting characteristics about anger. There is something called an anger spiral. A bad day at office often turns into a bad day at home as well. Why? When we get angry, there are certain hormones that are triggered in the body, and that keeps our excitation threshold low. So once a person is annoyed, it is easy for him to get upset and then become frustrated, then become angry, then become furious. This is called an anger spiral. And there is, in the interpersonal interaction, there is something called an anger loop that can happen. Harish can be angry and Harish can do something bad, and that will make Hema feel frustrated. And Hema can feel angry. Hema will do something bad, and that will make Harish even more frustrated and even more angry. And the loop and the spiral can combine together. Someone can be calm initially, and then due to some reason get annoyed, and that will cause the other person to get upset, and then it gets frustrated. Both of them become angry and furious, and things can go out of control. It can happen in marital relations, even in group dynamics. Would have all heard about news or read about news that something that started as a minor altercation growing up into a full-blown riot. It happens very much. The important thing here is that once it is into the angry and furious stage, it would be impossible to control or too costly to control. So the right thing to do is to, at the beginning stages itself, identify the anger and then distract or subdue or control it. How to do that? There are some practical tips that we can make use of. First is reframing. Instead of thinking that that person was deliberately trying to harm you, just think, maybe she didn't see me. It is easy. And she can also think, maybe he has an emergency. That instantly, that will calm us down. So the first step in anger management is reframing. Second step is distraction. Go for a walk. Do some other activity deliberately and then come back and brood over it. That will help us calm down much and make decision with a clearer mind, clearer, calm mind. And this is the essence of what this book says about anger management. This quote is attributed to this Tibetan teacher, Chongyum Trungpa, and he said, don't suppress it, but don't act on it. So that is what this book says about anger. Don't suppress it, but don't act on it. Next is sadness. Women are twice as likely to be depressed than men. That will make us think that, okay, women are the one who get sad more. But there is another statistic. Men are twice as likely to be alcoholic than women. Maybe men, we are drowning our sadness in alcohol. Looks like both men and women are prone to sadness. How to control sadness? Here too the techniques are similar. First is distraction. Get involved in some kind of celebratory activities. Second is reframing. Develop that sense of gratitude instead of feeling, instead of thinking about what we lack. Think about what we possess and cultivate that attitude of gratefulness. Here in this picture, everyone is sad, thinking about what he or she lacks. But if they are able to tilt their view, and if a person who is in whichever car is able to think that, oh, I am happier, I am more fortunate, I am better than a pedestrian or a cyclist, that kind of reframing will work wonders in almost all situations. Even in case of cancer patients, when their cases are presented in this perspective, it is seen that they experience relief. So wherever we feel sad about, try to think always, it could have been worse. And let us be happy and grateful for what we are in, the situation we are in, whichever situation it is. And a third way, most really very effective way to fight depression is volunteering or social activities. When we help someone without expecting anything in return, that gives a sublime level of satisfaction and happiness, and that is seen to be very, very effective to fight depression. And our forum, Toastmasters, is kind of a volunteering forum. So if there is somebody who are trying to fight off sadness, please, the door is open. Please come and join us, and let us do together some social work. With that, we have come to the end of that chapter. Next one is self-motivation. Secret of self-motivation. Maybe this graph is familiar to all of us. We would all like to reach some lofty goals, and we know exactly what is the step. We have to first set the goal, then make a plan, then get to work on that plan, then stick to it, and then we will reach that goal. If it is so simple, it should have happened with everyone, but it happens with only very few people. What is the secret? The biggest challenge happens at this stage. We will all set goals, we will make plan, we will get to work, and then we miserably fail in sticking to that plan. How to break that habit? How to make us, what is the secret to make us stick to that plan? There is a very interesting study that was done in 4-year-old in Stanford University that was called the marshmallow test. The experimenter, what they did is they took a group of children. To those children, they provided one marshmallow and told them, if you eat it now, you will get only one marshmallow. But if you wait until I come back, you will get 2 marshmallows. With that, they left the children in the room and went out. About 30% of the students, they were able to wait. They didn't eat that marshmallow. The rest, 30% of them, they immediately had it. 30% of them, maybe in between, sometime they had it. And after these people, they came back. But the big insight came after about 12 years. These students were followed into their team. And then when they verified the achievements of these students, it was found that all those students who were capable of resisting that temptation, or those who were capable to wait until that experimenter came back and get those 2 marshmallows, they performed better, significantly better than other students in SAT score, in their life achievements, in their self-image, and all sort of factors. So this capability to resist that impulse, to get into that immediate gratification, this is a very powerful capability that will keep us on the path to success in life. One issue here, it goes against what Aesop told us 2000 years ago. Aesop said, a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. But here it is not so. A marshmallow in hand was much worse than 2 marshmallows later. Why? There is a difference in the situational context. At the time of Aesop, first of all, Aesop was a slave. The year was about 2000 years ago, and food and other necessities, they were really scarce commodities. Unless you get and make use of whatever you could lay your hands on immediately, the biggest danger is that someone else will steal it from you, and there is no history of people making good their promises, especially those promises made to slaves. So at the time of Aesop, the risk of uncertainty and the risk of getting those 2 promised marshmallows, the chance of getting those 2 promised marshmallows after a time, that was nearly 0. In that kind of situations, yes, everybody will be tempted to go for the bird in hand. But we don't live in that kind of situation now. In our cases, if somebody makes a promise to us, it is more overwhelmingly likely that that promise will be fulfilled. And we do not, the average life expectancy is also very high. We can be certainly sure that most of us in this audience today will be alive 10 years later also. But we will not know. It is certain that most of us will be there. We do not know who will not be there, that nobody can predict. But that certainty has grown manifold in these past 2000 years. So According to the current situation in which we are living, it is the marshmallow that predicts the ability to defer that gratification. That is a vital skill that we can have, and that will set us on the road to success. Very good thing. One more good thing about this is that this delayed gratification that can be practiced and enhanced. In this study was replicated in multiple universities, multiple geographic locations, and the results were consistent. And one more thing that they have seen is that the students who were able to resist that temptation, they deployed certain tactics. Some of them ducked under the desk. Some of them walked to the window and looked outside, and they were not tempted to get that marshmallow immediately. It was those students who stared at those marshmallows. It was those children who were looking at that marshmallow who couldn't resist that temptation. So, in our day-to-day life, if there is some long-term goal that we want to pursue, and if there is some short-term gratification that stands in the way, the technique here is keep our attention away from that short-term gratification. For example, if you are trying to reduce weight, and if our fridge is filled with pastries and fried chicken and all those things, a good thing is to keep those temptations away from the fridge and replace them with maybe some healthy vegetables and fruits. And whenever we feel a craving to eat, go and munch on those vegetables. It is as simple. So that is the first skill in self-motivation, that is delayed gratification. Second is optimism. I want an answer from the audience. Can you identify who are these two children?
Definitely, definitely.
Absolutely. Yes. We all know. Yes, we all know Sachin became the god of cricket. But what happened to Kambli? I think all of us know this happened in 1988. They scored a record 664 runs. Sachin scored 325, and Kambli scored a full 24 runs more than Sachin. And many people said that Kambli is more talented than Sachin. What happened to Kambli? He debuted in international cricket in the year 1991. He has one of the highest batting averages. But after 1994, when the West Indies bounced against him, commentator Harsha Bhogle says he was not the same player. He played his last test match in 1995 and never returned to form after the abandoned semi-final between India and Sri Lanka in the year 1996 in Calcutta. He broke down on the ground, and he played his last ODI in 2000, and he was replaced by new talent. On the other hand, what happened to Sachin? I am thankful to DTM Manoj Nair for giving me the story. This is a story narrated by Australian spinner Brad Hogue. Brad Hogue in the year 2007 succeeded in taking the wicket of Sachin, and he was ecstatic after that. And he approached Sachin with the same photograph of him taking the wicket and asked for an autograph. And Sachin wrote these lines there: "Never again, mate, ha ha ha." This happened in 2007. After that, there were about 22 matches where Sachin and Brad Hogue played against each other, and not in a single match was Brad Hogue able to take the wicket of Sachin. Is there some difference? Take the case of two children. They do something bad. Imagine that this child dropped a glass and that it broke on the floor. There are two ways it can be framed in the mind. First is that I did something bad, and that, if you think it that way, it is called a guilt. And the second is that the child can think, I am bad, I am incapable of holding even a glass cup. And that kind of thinking is called shame. Guilt is associated with personal transformations for the better. Emperor Ashoka, after the Kalinga War, he felt guilty, and that triggered a transformation in him. And shame, when people become ashamed, that is associated with feeling of depression, suicide attempts, And some people even turn into destructive behavior like terrorism or school shooting. It is the same incident, but the way people think about it, that's all different. It is personal. A person can think that I did something bad, or they can feel I am bad. But this subtle change can bring profound differences. If a person who thinks I did something bad is likely to try to do it better the next time. Let us imagine that person improves by just 1% every day, because constantly that person is trying to improve upon doing that activity. Over a year, he or she will be about 38 times better than how they started off. This is the impact of compounding, at least even at a very small rate, just at 1% improvement. On the other hand, if that person feels I am bad and feels depressed and gives up, and if that person's capability to do that task because of that depression and lack of confidence, if it deteriorates just by 1% every day, over a period of 365 days, that person will almost lose that 100% that capability to do that task. This is just a small change in the way we think about it. So the secret here is that faced with failure, always think, I did something bad. Never ever think, I am bad. There may be teachers, there may be bosses, there may be spouses who would come and tell that you are bad. Never believe them. Think, I did something bad. And also be certain in your mind that it is the person who tells us you are bad who is really stupid. We are saying knowledgeable people, wise people will never ever say that you are bad. That person, a wise person, will always, they will say only that you did something bad. And that makes a profound difference. It is just a change in the way we frame it. And that is called optimism. I am known to say whether Sachin was optimistic and he was guilty, or Kambli was felt ashamed. I do not know what happened. But this is something that is said about in this book, that the secret of transformation and improvement, constant improvement over time, that is framing it in this way, that is the feeling of guilt. With that, we have come to the end of the material today. And this is the program structure. We have covered the part two, these two domains. And in the next session, we will go through the next one, that is to read other person's innermost feelings and to handle relations smoothly. Q&A, if you have any questions.